Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I want to start out by talking about, it's sort of two in one. One is why I didn't do a recipe video this past week, and the other is talking about the whole viral cottage cheese flatbread. So I didn't do a video last Friday, a cooking video, for a couple reasons. One, and I explained this earlier on in this month, because Connor is away on a 1-month deployment combat training thing, we've got Colton about 4 days a week. This has had an impact on my schedule. The other thing I've been trying to do, I've been playing around with this viral cottage cheese flatbread recipe, trying to make it more foolproof. I think there's a lot of variables kind of going on in here, and the comments that I got on this video, I'm a little bit torn. Part of me thinks maybe I should start doing more failure videos because I get a ton of comments, which helps boost the whole YouTube engagement metric. The problem is not all of them are super polite, especially when it comes to this viral flatbread recipe for whatever reason. So the responses I got were really all over the place. Some people saying, well, there are a lot of people saying you need to use 2 eggs instead of 1 egg. Some did this very politely. Others, not so much, saying things like, if you're not going to follow the recipe, why even bother making it? I don't know if they used that tone of voice. That's just the tone of voice I read it in. But the recipe I used when I looked it up on Google, the very first one I looked at had 1 egg. So I used 1 egg. And interestingly, despite the overwhelming number of comments that I got that said use 2 eggs, there were some people that said, hey, I use 1 egg, it works just fine. I've had people say, don't use any eggs. So all you 2-egg people that use a lot of capital letters and exclamation points in your comments, chillax, okay? There's more than one way to make this recipe, apparently. I also saw all kinds of different variations in terms of added ingredients, which I don't want to do. I want to keep this as simple as possible. Another thing that I saw a lot of variation in terms of comments were cooking methods, in terms of time and temperature, and do you use parchment paper? Do you use silicone? Do you spray either? Do you crumple the parchment paper and then do it? I mean, really, the suggestions and or demands and or, hey, you're stupid, you need to do it this way, sort of comments were really sort of all over the place. So clearly there is no one single method to do this. However, along the way, I did find something I think is kind of cool. And frankly, I like it better than the flatbread. So that video will be coming on Friday. That's just my little teaser right there. The next topic I'd like to cover on this podcast, and it's something I really enjoy doing, is food packaging. So sometimes it's things that are labeled keto, but not really keto. Sometimes it's things that I think are sort of intentionally misleading. Other times it's just me being lulled into a false sense of security by looking at the front of a package and thinking it should be fine. In this case, it was a package of gyro meat from Costco. This particular stuff right here. Anyhow, I looked at the back of the bag after eating them, and I saw that it was 5 grams of carbohydrates per serving. And then I looked at the ingredients list, which I'm going to pull up on my phone right now. So here's the ingredient list right down below. It starts out fine. We've got some meat, we've got some water, but then we have breadcrumbs, which include wheat flour and dextrose, and then a binder, which has potato starch in it. So yeah, you think you're buying something that's essentially just meat and you're good to go, and there's this other stuff in there. So always, and I know I say this a lot, but I also then tend to forget about it when I'm at the store, always check out the back of the bag. And I just want to make clear though, I'm not being the ingredient police here. All I'm doing is saying be aware of what you're putting into yourself and make your own decision. Don't just blindly buy a product. Speaking of ingredient police, I had mentioned this in the last podcast. I've been getting out onto Facebook and I see people on these various keto recipe, groups. Yeah, groups. I see immediately anything that somebody posts, I'm just like, all right, they're going to get beat up in the comments and then they're going to learn, just don't post anything on Facebook. It is just crazy, the amount of ingredient police out there. And I kind of wish that all the ingredient police would just come together and form a council and decide they're just going to be afraid of everything, because clearly everything is dangerous. Now, to that end, I had one of my viewers recommend another channel to me, and I'm going to share it with you right now. It's called Food Science Babe, and I will link to her channel down below. Now, you may agree with some of what she says, you may agree with none of what she says, but there's no doubt that she's very knowledgeable in food science. And I find that I agree with the majority of what she says. I do have a little bit of a personal issue with her stance on some of the seed oils. You know, for me, they cause me inflammation. I have, these highly processed seed oils, and that's what happens. I get sore in the knuckles and the back. I'm not saying you can't have any. Maybe canola works out great for you. Knock yourself out, have some canola. But she gets in and really does a very good and very pragmatic job at unraveling some of the arguments that people make about various different ingredients. There's one that is really great where people are complaining about natural flavors, and she breaks down where those come from, and the fact that a strawberry, for example, is one of the most, you look at the chemical or flavor breakdown of it, and you would think it's terrifying that it was made in a lab, and I think she's showing like an organic, non-GMO strawberry. But yeah, things are made out of chemicals, and some of these chemicals have flavors, and these flavors can be derived naturally from a strawberry and then placed into a sparkling water, for example. That doesn't make them bad. Anyhow, I'm not going to do any sort of preaching or get up on my soapbox. She is far smarter than I am. She does a far better job explaining it. So I think if you find yourself concerned about a particular ingredient or something, go to her channel, look it up, see what she has to say, and then you've got at least another viewpoint on it. Another thing I mentioned in a previous podcast was about Lean Body Mind, my other channel, and how I'm using that as a location to kick off my best health, best fitness sort of challenge. And by challenge, I don't mean it's a competition. It's just I want to get in the best shape of my life at age 56. And I've invited whoever wants to come along, regardless of what their health or fitness goals are. I want to create this supportive community for it that is separate and distinct from just eating keto. This is over there, it's not about eating, well, maybe a little bit, but it's mostly about how we can instill the habits that we want to instill in ourselves to achieve the best health of our life. Additionally, at the end of this month, I will be doing an extended fast. So the last fast that I did that was an extended fast, I think was 150 hours. So it's probably going to be in that sort of area as well, and I want to create a place where I can do live streams where we can talk about it, be supportive, talk about how we are supplementing, for example, with electrolytes or various minerals to avoid cramping and being tired and things like that. But like I said, even though I do consider it sort of complementary to serious keto, I felt that it's distinct enough that I wanted to put it someplace else. So if you want to come in, join the group, have some fun, support one another, get motivated, I will include a link to Lean Body Mind down below as well. Next up, I've got a little story. Sometimes I call this keto in the news. It's not specifically keto in the news, although I am mildly surprised they didn't take an opportunity to bash keto as part of this. Anyhow, this article showed up in my newsfeed. It is on foxnews.com. It could have just as easily been on CNN or MSNBC, and in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up on one of those because it's that sort of article. But it says, major health organization makes startling heart disease prediction, and then in quotes, near perfect storm. And I'm not going to read through all of this, but I do think that there are some interesting predictions here from the American Heart Association. And I do want to step right in and say, I have sort of a built-in skepticism for any government agency or health agency that has 3 letters. Call it my own personal bias. But it says that at least 6 in 10 U.S. adults could experience cardiovascular disease within the next 30 years. The rate of hypertension, which is one of the key risk factors for heart disease, is expected to increase from 51.2% in 2020 to 61% in 2050. Diabetes, another major risk factor, is also expected to rise from 16.3% to 26.8%, along with obesity. Now, this next one is the one that I think is especially startling and one that I think is completely plausible just based on the trajectory that we're on in this country. Obesity will rise from 43.1%. Like, just think of that, 43% right now of this country is obese. By 2050, they're predicting 60.6%. So almost 2/3 of us, well, hopefully not us, are going to be obese. That's just, it's mind-boggling that we have gotten to this point. I'm not going to read the rest of the article, but I just want us to kind of ponder on it for a moment, just how incredibly sad that is. And as you look at where we've gone, what has been the messaging in terms of diet and nutrition over the last 50 years? It's been low fat, no fat, eat lots of carbs, eat the food pyramid that keeps on changing. And at some point, don't we just sort of scratch our head and say, if we're doing everything that we're being told to do for our health and nutrition, how come it's not working out? How come we're having increased hypertension? How come we're having increased obesity? How come we're having increased diabetes? And it makes me so very happy on the flip side that I and we discovered keto or a low-carb lifestyle as a way to take control of our health, our weight, and our overall fitness. The last thing I want to share is ever so slightly personal. It's not keto related, but it was super cool. Like I said, we've been having my grandson Colton over for about 4 days a week now instead of the normal 1 day a week. And the other night after dinner, he went and he sat on the couch and he said, "Grandpa, can you just come sit on the couch next to me?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I sat down on the couch next to him and he just kind of worked his way next to me so we're kind of shoulder to shoulder. And he said, "Grandpa, can we just sit here in quiet?" And I said, "You got it, buddy. Sometimes it feels good just to sit next to someone you love and be quiet." And then he said, "'Cause Grandma talks too much." Anyhow, it was kind of a cool moment. Like I've said in the past as well, he and I are both highly sensitive people, and sometimes we need that little break. We need that little bit of quiet, that little bit of unwinding. And it was sort of a special grandpa-grandson bonding moment. But that is going to be it for this video. I will be back later in this week with a product review. It might be a review of this Ultra Human Air ring. I think I've now got enough experience with it and enough data that I might be able to pull that video together by this Wednesday. And on Friday, I will be back with my cooking video, kind of a variation on the whole viral cottage cheese flatbread. So come on back. See you soon. Thanks for watching.